Silence is golden. Meditation matters. By Angelo. Chapter 2. Conscious Awareness. Quote, "If you want to find the secrets of the universe, think in terms of energy, frequency and vibration." Close quote. By Nikola Tesla. In order to fully understand the importance and power of meditation, we need to get to grips with the perennial wisdom that gives rise to all religions and forms of spirituality. I have written extensively on this topic in previous books, but the challenge here is to provide a fairly succinct summary which will place meditation into the broadest possible context. We do not need to be religious or even spiritually inclined to grasp this ancient wisdom and hence benefit from a dedicated meditation practice. The problem with religion in particular and spirituality in general is that it requires us to have faith and believe in something that is seemingly beyond our understanding. This requirement for faith can, and often does, conflict with our pre-existing and conditioned concepts of the purpose of life. Rather than trying to convince you to believe in something mysterious and untenable, I am instead going to lead you through an investigation of your own experience in order to arrive at the same underlying truth. This wisdom is so simple and so easily recognizable, but most of us have never had the need or desire to look. Indeed, it is so simple that we often miss it. The truth is hiding in plain sight, but somehow we cannot see it. You may struggle to accept the explanation that follows, but if you take the time to investigate your own experience, then you will undoubtedly be able to verify what is being shared. The first rather surprising fact to consider is that our entire lives take place in our minds. From the moment we were born, every single life event that has or could occur has been experienced internally. All sensory perception takes place in the mind. Emotions and bodily sensations are internal. Thoughts, memories, desires, fears, and any other product of the psyche all appear in the mind. We assume that there is a physical outside world that impacts our lives, but the only evidence that we have of an outside world is our own internal experience. Just pause and reflect upon this for a while. The only seeming proof that we have of an outside material world is that which takes place in our own minds. There is undoubtedly some external stimulus that creates our internal experience, but whether these stimuli are physical or energetic is beyond our ability to prove. All we have to rely upon is our experience. Admittedly, our belief in the material world is deeply embedded in our cultures, and our experience seems to reinforce this belief. However, the fact that you can see, hear, touch, taste, and smell anything external to you does not prove that it exists. The only proof is your experience. If you strip away the belief, then all that remains is a constantly changing kaleidoscope of activity taking place in the mind. This also, rather shockingly, includes the experience of having and living in a body. If we close our eyes and just sit quietly, we will of course experience the numerous sensations arising in the body. These sensations are all taking place in the mind. If we then open our eyes and look at our body, then these visual images are also internal. If we touch any part of our body, then the experience of touch takes place internally. Indeed, any supposed evidence of the permanent existence of our body can only ever be an experience. Our belief in the body means that this experience is taken as definite, undeniable evidence of bodily existence. As with the material world, if we let go of this belief, then all we are left with is a constantly changing experience. Any strongly held belief is simply a conviction that something is unquestionably true. A belief, in turn, is ultimately a personal opinion. Any personal opinion is just a thought that is given particular importance. So, thoughts give rise to opinions, which then produce beliefs. Many of our beliefs can be traced back to childhood conditioning and cultural norms. The fact that the vast majority of humankind believe in a material world and a physical bodily existence does not necessarily mean that it's true. It's only a belief. Yet beliefs are very powerful. We literally believe our worlds into apparent existence and then use our experience to reinforce our belief. Billions of different worlds arising in the unique minds of human beings, yet the only evidence that we actually have of the world is our own experience. I'm not necessarily suggesting that we change our beliefs. I am simply highlighting the undeniable truth that all experience takes place in the mind, and that belief plays a crucial role in determining that experience. Notwithstanding what our individual beliefs or experiences may be, the next important truth to discover is that we are consciously aware of everything that takes place in the mind. Let's close our eyes again and focus on the content of our current experience. There will be bodily sensations, background sounds, thoughts arising and subsiding, perhaps some underlying emotion, and indeed many other components of experience in this moment. Notice that we are aware of all of this. Now contemplate this simple question. Is the awareness that is aware of bodily sensations the same awareness that is aware of sounds, thoughts, and emotions? Are there multiple versions of awareness, or is there a single awareness that is aware of the different elements of experience? It's important that we discover this understanding of awareness for ourselves. We will find that there is a single awareness that is aware of whatever may arise in the mind. Countless potential movements in the mind, but a single, ever-present, conscious awareness. Notice next that the awareness is unmoving. The landscape of the mind is constantly changing and is in perpetual motion, yet the awareness remains still and silent. The mind may be fairly quiet, or it may be going through great disturbance, but awareness remains constant and consistent. Whatever happens in the mind, the awareness is unaffected. Awareness simply is. Prior to uncovering this simple truth, my belief was that my experience and my awareness were all jumbled up together in my mind. This is indeed what most people believe. What we're discovering here is that there are at least two things going on. The first is the content of the mind, whatever that may be in any given moment. The second is the single, unchanging, unaffected awareness. Are we the content of experience, or are we the ones who are aware? Are we our minds, or are we the awareness itself? These are questions of fundamental importance. I mentioned that there are at least two things going on, because there are in fact further elements to consider. How do we know that we are aware? If we withdraw our attention from the content of experience and just focus on the sensation of being aware, then we can become aware of awareness. The reason that we know that we are aware is that we are aware of being aware. This may sound like a bit of a contortion, but it's a very simple and common truth for all of us. There is no doubt that we are aware of being aware. It is unquestionably true. The final step to take in this brief dive into our conscious awareness is to contemplate how we know that we exist. This may seem a pointless question, because the answer seems so obvious. We know that we exist. Why bother to understand how we know? The reason for taking the trouble to understand this knowing is that the answer reveals something that is both extraordinary and potentially life-changing. So, let's explore this together. If we were to be placed in a sensory deprivation tank, which eliminated all external perception, we would still know that we existed. If all thoughts and emotions came to a temporary halt, we would still know. If there were absolutely no activity in the mind whatsoever, then the only thing that would remain would be the sense of existence. We would know that we are, and this knowingness of existence would be our only experience. Another way to describe this knowingness would be to say that we are aware of being. Everything else in our lives comes after and on top of this sense of being. This awareness of existence is primary, and all else is secondary. This is true for all of us. This sense of being is fundamental. It is who we are before anything else is added. It is our true nature, but this truth is often eclipsed by the activity of the mind, which draws our attention away from beingness and into our individual worlds. This outward movement of attention can be reversed, and we can find that our true nature reveals everything that we have previously spent our whole lives searching for. We now have 4 seemingly distinct components of the psyche operating simultaneously. Firstly, we have the activity of the mind, stimulated by external phenomena in the form of sensory perception, and supplemented by internal thoughts, emotions, memories, and beliefs. Secondly, we have an individual awareness of this mind activity. Thirdly, we have an awareness that we are aware. And finally, we have an awareness of our sense of existence. This sense of being is primary and does not depend on any awareness of mind activity. I used to believe that all of these aspects of the psyche were a product of my brain. This is understandable and forgivable, given that this belief is widely held and taken to be a fact. The various wisdom traditions suggest otherwise. The alternative explanation is that the activity of mind is generated by the brain, but that the deeper levels of awareness and the sense of existence are distinct from brain activity. This conscious awareness is present before any mind activity arises, and it continues to be present after the mind subsides. It is ever present. It is eternal, and it simply is. It's not personal, but is instead universal. It is at the core of our being. It is our true nature. The word that I'm going to use for this conscious awareness is consciousness. There have been many words used throughout history to try to label this eternal sense of being, but I find that the word consciousness is usefully descriptive and also free of association with any particular tradition. We are of course at liberty to substitute any word we prefer, but all such words point to the same underlying principle. Having identified the distinct components of the psyche, I would now like to collapse these distinctions and suggest that all of it corresponds to different vibrations or levels or states of consciousness. Even the surface level of individual mind activity is a limited form of consciousness. Indeed, perennial wisdom suggests that the entire universe is a vibrational manifestation and subsequent experience of this single consciousness, and that this wisdom is the ultimate human understanding. This wisdom reveals a single consciousness expressing itself on a vast scale and in multitudinous diversity. The universal expression is then experienced through the unique body-mind instruments of individual human beings and other sentient life forms, all of which are themselves individuations of itself. A single consciousness that is continually evolving through learning from its own experience. A primordial consciousness that is recreating its own manifestation from moment to moment in a never-ending cycle of birth and death. The consciousness that is the underlying reality of everything and everybody. The source and content of the entire universe. The Alpha and the Omega. Consciousness is the ultimate truth of existence. Many sages have appeared throughout history who have tried to share this wisdom in their own language and cultural setting. Much of this has been turned into scripture, doctrine, practice and specific faith. The misunderstandings and misinterpretation are passed down through the generations, and somehow the fundamental message does not seem to take root. The sages themselves are worshipped and deified, placing them into a category seemingly beyond the usual human experience. These apparently special humans were simply expressions of the single consciousness, and they consistently shared the message through their words and actions that the same is true for all of us. The mistake we make is continuing to believe in ourselves as separate, limited, personal bodies and minds, and hence the single consciousness is perceived to be external, unseen and supernatural. We conceive of this hidden power in countless different ways, and many have strong faith that this belief will somehow take care of their personal lives. We outsource our sense of individual responsibility to some concept of a third-party force of nature, whatever that concept may be. This is not what the sages were trying to communicate. The universal message is that you are an expression of the single consciousness. and that your true nature is consciousness itself. This is true for everyone, without exception. This may seem difficult to grasp, yet the very fact of our existence is the biggest clue of all. What is it that gives rise to the miracle of human experience? Where does our conscious awareness come from? Who are we, really? How can we find the truth for ourselves? If we persist in believing that we are separate, limited, personal bodies and minds, then we will continue to experience life on this basis and suffer the consequences. There will be fleeting happiness and pleasure, of course, but there will also be inevitable pain and suffering. On the other hand, if we are willing to explore the depths of our own being, then we will eventually discover our true nature as consciousness. There's no doubt about this. We already are this consciousness, so all we have to do is discover it. Once this revelation takes place, it will be powerfully transformative. We are exchanging the limited power of an individual personal mind for the power of consciousness itself. The single consciousness exists prior to any language, and therefore prior to any words. The sages have tried to communicate the nature of consciousness by describing the qualities that arise from it. Many words have been used, but a selection of them would be silent, still, peaceful, loving, blissful, eternal, infinite, and whole. None of these words capture the essence of consciousness, but they are, as it were, the flavours or perfumes that arise from it. Consciousness cannot be known, but the qualities can be and are experienced when we dive down into our own being. We desire these very qualities in our lives, but we seek them through our minds and never find permanent satisfaction. The irony is that we already are the very qualities that we seek. What we're looking for is where we are looking from. We've covered a lot of ground in this relatively short chapter. I'm attempting to capture and summarize the perennial wisdom that has spawned countless millions of words of scripture and literature across the ages. The key points to note are as follows. There is a single consciousness that gives rise to universal experience. Consciousness does not create a separate material world. Consciousness creates the appearance of a material world out of itself, moment to moment. As well as the creation of experience through the movement of consciousness, there is also a primary aspect of consciousness that is unmoving and self-aware. All sentient life forms are instruments of perception through which consciousness is able to experience and evolve its own creation. Human beings are one such life form, and we have evolved to the point where we are able to contemplate our own true nature, which is consciousness. Without contemplation, we believe ourselves to be separate, limited, personal bodies and minds. This simple mistake is the root cause of all individual and collective suffering. Religion and spiritual tradition point to our true nature as consciousness, but such beliefs are no substitute for direct experience. The only way to truly know and understand this wisdom is to experience consciousness for ourselves. This requires disciplined practice until revelation of the truth brings about transformation. In attempting to communicate this wisdom, many of the sages use parable and metaphor in order to provide explanations that seem relevant to the particular time and culture. There are a great many to choose from, but my particular favourite is the metaphor of the ocean and the contrast between surface activity and the depths below. The next chapter uses this metaphor to explain the big picture and to identify the direction of travel that we should take if we want to enhance our experience of life.